It started with this, very basic cash flow forecasting to figure out, do I have enough cash to get through the week, through the month? But it started to grow into, it almost got addictive. I'm like, well, man, I got to figure out what's going on in my business. Well, how are we going to make, our budget for the year? How are we going to make that goal so we can actually grow? And so I started to do sales forecasting. And then I started to look at our underlying numbers of, what we could produce and how efficient we were, how many billable hours our team could produce. Were we actually producing that? And so I started to build these forecasts out and figure out more and more the sort of underpinnings of our business. And that really is what got us to that point where we were growing. We survived, and then we started to grow. And the really sad part is looking back and realizing how much money I left on the table for the previous 8, 9, whatever years by flying by the seat of my pants and really not understanding our finances and where we were headed.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a great one. Our guest has more than 15 years of successful entrepreneurial experience. Today, he focuses on building his cash flow software company, DryRun, to help businesses and financial professionals work towards financial health through financial forecasting. How delicious! Blaine Bertsch, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great. And we met at a bookkeeping conference and you told me your backstory and I absolutely loved it and knew instantly that I wanted to have you on the show. And before we get into why, tell us a little bit about you and your career path leading up till today.
Oh, sure. Certainly. So yeah, I remember, telling you a little bit about my background. I think that kind of came up in conversation and, really you'd asked how I got into, cash flow forecasting. And, I don't have a formal finance background. I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur it's funny, I'm actually close to 20 years now. I think I better update my bio. But, the way I dove into cash flow forecasting, I literally credit or blame, I guess, either way, 2009. And so I started my first business in 1999. And by around 2007 or so, we had grown the business. We were traveling. I had a business partner by then. We were traveling literally all over the world on trade ships from Asia to, New York, Austin, Texas for South by Southwest. We were just all over the place all the time. We had just expanded our business, hired new staff, got into different offices from bigger to bigger to bigger and planning to grow into it. We had one that was way too big. And we just leased fancy new sports cars. And that was, we felt like we were just like on a complete roll. Everything was flying along. We had our challenges here and there with cash flow, but, it just kind of flew by the seat of our pants, had enough work coming in, didn't really think that much about it. And we started to hear these rumblings of this recession, this global recession. But, you start to think, it can't get all the way down to us. We're too little. We're in Canada. We've got clients. It's not going to do much. And around 2009, we realized that just wasn't the case. At that time, 70% of our clientele were government. Just to go back a step, it was a creative agency. So we were doing a lot of like videos and like touchscreen kiosks and kind of software-y stuff and this sort of new media type stuff. At that time, that was really, really novel. Suddenly, those budgets started slamming shut and projects that we actually had midstream and close to the end were getting canceled. We actually had one project that was, we actually built out 96% of the project. They still canceled it because they could actually report that they had canceled the full amount, even though they didn't admit that they had actually paid out that much. Really strange time, really strange things happening. So for us, suddenly things changed, felt like literally overnight. We were determined to make it through the months and make it through the year. We didn't want to lay anybody off. We just hired a number of new people. They were, felt like family to us. Of course, they had families. Suddenly it becomes very, very real. And so to me, it felt like the fun time stopped. And I literally pulled out the spreadsheets to figure out how I was going to make payroll on Friday. That's literally how it started. And we just kind of scraped through and scraped by. And I remember in 2000, I think it was 2010, our accountant at our kind of yearly meeting, and at that time only did once a year, congratulated us for losing 5%. And I was a little bit, kind of like, oh, what a jerk, and realized that he actually said, he goes, no, I'm not kidding. He says the amount of businesses that are losing their shirts and going bankrupt, he says, you guys figuring out some way to make it through like that was a rarity. And by 2011, we actually had our biggest year. And so going back a step, it started with this, very basic cash flow forecasting to figure out, do I have enough cash to get through the week, through the month? But it started to grow into, it almost got addictive. I'm like, well, man, I got to figure out what's going on in my business. Well, how are we going to make, our budget for the year? How are we going to make that goal so we can actually grow? And so I started to do sales forecasting. And then I started to look at our underlying numbers of, what we could produce and how efficient we were, how many billable hours our team could produce. Were we actually producing that? And so I started to build these forecasts out and figure out more and more the sort of underpinnings of our business. And that really is what got us to that point where we were growing. We survived, and then we started to grow. And the really sad part is looking back and realizing how much money I left on the table for the previous 8, 9, whatever years by flying by the seat of my pants and really not understanding our finances and where we were headed. What happened last year, perfect example, 2009, what happened in 2008, what happened in 2007, completely unrelated, really didn't make much difference to us. It was all, how do we move forward? How do we reduce our risk, avoid crisis, and then how do we grow? So that's where this all came from. So to jump up closer to today, and I sold that business in 2012, and this just sort of kept coming back to me. And I really struggled with, I hated those spreadsheets, even though they saved my butt, and needed to figure out there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way, and I couldn't find a better way. So I decided we're going to build a better way, and that's really what led to Dry Run.
It's amazing. I can just listening to your story, I can imagine the challenges, the sleepless nights that you would have went through, and then you were lucky. You discovered a way to navigate, as often many great entrepreneurs do, is they find a way to get through the mountain if you have to, and then you turned it around and you found the power of having visibility into what's really going on in your business, which, if any business owner was listening right now, I'm sure they're salivating at, I want that data. I want to have that information. I want that view into my business. And that's probably what you have people getting excited about Dry Run.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, a lot of times what happens is when businesses come directly to us, a lot of times they're in crisis. They're stepping off the curb in front of a bus and they're just realizing it. And they're trying to find their way through it. And, a lot of times they'll move on to that next step where they're going, okay, well, how do we avoid having this happen again? And like I always say, cash flow forecasting is kind of in 4 phases or 4 areas, using the term cash flow a little bit loosely, but you're going from that crisis of stepping right out in front of a bus to going to that risk aversion where you're saying, okay, how do we make sure this isn't happening again? So when you step out in front of a bus, the bus now is actually 3 blocks away, and you can kind of go, okay, well, now we cross the street, or we can step off back onto the curb, or we have options, right? And then you go from there, kind of like I did, going to, okay, well, if I got to make $1 million this year, how am I going to do it in 12 months and not 14? Like, how do I reach those goals? And then finally, how and when do I grow? Because growth is both essential, but also, extremely dangerous at times. So it's got to be planned and timed really carefully. And so that was kind of what we see a lot of times, businesses will hop in at any of those 4 stages, but too often it's at the crisis mode. And, like I met you at a bookkeeping conference, we are spending most of our time talking with bookkeepers and talking with accountants and even, fractional CFOs and business coaches to a lesser degree, to tell them not only about dry run, but to tell them that there's this massive opportunity to step in and help these businesses before they hit a crisis. And the biggest issue we see is that there's just this massive miscommunication between businesses and bookkeepers. The bookkeepers, I think sometimes they ask a question, they'll say, hey, how's your cash flow? And the business owner, they're thinking, 6 feet ahead of them. They're saying, oh man, I got enough money to make it through Friday. That's good. But the reality is, you start asking the right questions and you find out they had a couple close calls in the last month. They had to put some personal money in to keep it afloat. It is keeping them awake at night. Absolutely, literally. When we see people signing up at 3 a.m. and then we look and we're like, oh no, they're from our side of the world.
I love that.
It's happens a lot. And it's when you see it, it almost like you just kind of, your heart kind of grabs you because oh man, someone's in deep, right?
There's a saying, it's like, what's your 3 a.m. issue? And it's just funny how I've been there. I'm there often, waking up at 3 a.m. It's like, what is it about 3 a.m. that makes our unconscious mind go, get out of bed and solve a problem because I can't do it asleep. And yet your product is, sign up is at 3 a.m. Like that's what's happening. They're waking up in sweats and going, how am I going to solve this problem? And Googling for something likely. So interesting, so much excitement for me because this can solve such a big problem. And unfortunately, many entrepreneurs, small business owners don't even realize how important this is yet. I was just talking with someone earlier today about just, having people be motivated to do something, to change, right? It's often they don't know or don't take action until it's that 3 a.m. and they're stepping into the front of the bus, right? It's like the bumper's right at their ankles here. And unfortunately, once it happens they go, oh, I don't like this and change. But you said something that I think is exciting and could be great for our audience to spend time around the conversation or move the conversation with their clients to, is that what money are you leaving on the table? Is such an interesting statement. And that is like, imagine if what you're leaving on the table could be a whole nother, whatever it's valuable to the business owner, but it could be that you're leaving like 10 trips to Hawaii on the table every year, right? For your family, right? Absolutely. Like, I mean, you leaving, like what kind of numbers were you leaving on the table?
I can't, that was, it's quite a number of years ago now. It's 2012 when I sold that business. But I know at one point it was in my head that hundreds of thousands of dollars
left on the table.
I remember going, just at a glance going, oh man, have we left a lot of money on the table every year? And money that was just, there wasn't anything tied to it. It was mismanagement, silly inefficiencies, areas of our process we could have tightened up. And you just start looking and going, like, that is a significant amount of money. It's the amount of money that every year that helps us take that next step to grow, to have a higher profit margin, to have more money in the bank, to get, the nicer office and the nicer, equipment and things that can actually help attract, more great staff and great customers and into just having a really comfortable atmosphere and just, you can just sort of picture those things, right? And it's true that businesses, like, they'll hop in when they're in that crisis. They'll also hop in sometimes when they're trying to figure out their growth or they're just starting their business. There's lots of different times they'll hop in. The crisis one is most often and most
I can imagine. There are proactive people in the world, yes.
Yeah, they definitely are. But the other thing we find with business owners out, like of course, bookkeepers and accountants, so often they are business owners as well. But I'm talking about, I call them the cowboy entrepreneurs. They're the ones that are on the no financial background. They're the other side. They're the me's in a lot of ways, flying by the seat of the pants until you kind of, take control of things. They have, what I say, like a very short attention span, and to put it mildly, I always say they're off chasing butterflies. So they get past a crisis and they go, wow, man, I don't want that to happen again. And they stick with it for a while. And then a lot of them will start to fade because the priorities start to change. Now they're working, in their business, and they're trying to, catch up and help the crew and get that new job. And they lose their attention span until crisis hits again. So that's the other thing we find. Business owners, they're super quick to buy. They'll cancel at really odd times, and they'll come back 2 months later and start again. And you're just, oh man, like, guys, stick with it, because I know you're in another crisis. You just, they're in and out and up and down and all over the place. And we know that there's this massive opportunity for bookkeepers to go in and say, really help them understand. Like, that's a lot of what we do right now. Is we actually are building all sorts of resources for bookkeepers and talking with them all the time to try and say, here's how you can communicate with your business owners. We hear way too often, they don't have cash flow problems because they haven't told us. And literally, I had an email from one of our partners this morning that had a meeting with a business owner. It was last Thursday. And it was kind of like, well, I'm not sure if they have problems, but it seems like the type of business that might. And then I found out this morning, they're like, yeah, they're on board to dive into dry run because they've been trying to do it themselves with spreadsheets. And the bookkeeper had no idea that they were actually already actively trying to figure this out. They didn't know the bookkeeper could help them. The perfect situation from what we see every day is that the bookkeepers, especially, dived in and are using that cloud technology. It can help them build the system. They can help these businesses save ridiculous amounts of time, but they can also be the one to just kind of keep them honest and like, hey, we're on top of it. Your numbers are going to be reconciled. Your dry run account, your forecasts are going to be up to date. And we're going to drop you an email every Monday morning and tell you where you sit. And here's a little action list. Follow up with these guys. There's an invoice that's overdue. You got to find out about it. Check on this and this. And the business owner saves a ton of time, prioritizes the 2 or 3 things that really matter, and everybody is happy. The business owner is spending much more time on their business. They're getting the service that is, helping them avoid crisis and helping them grow their business and helping them understand more. So they'll get to the point of going, okay, let's take that next step and figure out how do we grow this thing, because they're not so focused on the next minute. They're getting some help with that from professionals that can really offer that help.
I just love it. We often talk about this very topic, and this is the opportunity for bookkeepers, is to use tools like this to empower their clients around their finances. And I don't think I've ever been to a business meeting where I'm with other entrepreneurs where cash flow was not something that was like an important piece of the future, right? It's like everybody wants to have a crystal ball. What's happening, what's coming, what the more we can provide what's happening in the future, the better we can make decisions. We can take bigger chances. We can do all sorts of things that are going to put our business in a better position to win. And so as bookkeepers, being the financial guides out there, I mean, if you were to go on a trip and you go to a museum even, I mean, your experience of that museum with an audio guide, or a real guide for that matter, but audio guides are pretty great too. Your satisfaction of the whole experience goes up like beyond measure, because now you actually are able to take in way more in way less time. And so if we think of the same thing for bookkeepers, being able to take information like you're helping them create efficiently and bring that to a business owner, you're seen as that person that just increased the enjoyment of their business experience.
Yeah, it's the opportunity is huge, and but we see this like I said, this miscommunication between the two sides all of the time, and there has to be a way to get over that, and that's what we're talking about all the time. Is like bookkeepers and accountants a lot of times say, well, my customer doesn't understand cash flow. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? They know cash flow. They know it inside out. They might not know the term. They probably struggle somewhat with the mechanics, but they intuitively understand cash flow. Like I twice in the last couple of years when I've been talking with business owners and they say, what do you do? And I said, we got, cash flow forecasting tool. Twice they teared up, literally teared up just from the word cash flow. I didn't say anything else. Just, I'm like, oh, well, sorry, what's going on? And you realize they're in the middle of like cash flow hell, like right now. The number of business owners, when I say we're doing a cash flow tool, and they sound like a pirate, like the swears come out, and it's very passionate because it's very personal, but they really struggle with understanding it. And a big part of it is that business owners too often think it's a foregone conclusion, that they're just sort of carried along with the wave and there's nothing they can do about it. And at times I've had business owners tell me to my face, I just don't want to know. I don't want to face it. And then I kind of go to that bus analogy and say, you know what? If you step off in front of the bus, you're getting hit. If you step off the curb and the bus is 3 blocks away, that time gives you options. And that's the big difference. And when the business owner starts to understand that it might not be a foregone conclusion, like if I have time and I kind of know what's going on, and especially if I got someone that kind of is keeping watch over things and helping me, and they're asking me those questions and kind of saying, hey, what's going on here? And giving me that early warning system, things can be done, very, very likely can be done. And that's where the business owners, it's like, once they get over that hump, then they're starting to go, wow, there's a lot of good info here. How do I get to that next step? How do I figure out how to make, my $1 million this year, my $2 million this year, whatever it is, and how do I grow? And some of these businesses are growing really, really quickly, and that's just a complete feeling of out of control as well. And the bookkeeper's in a perfect position to help them with that. Like I talk with business owners sometimes, and the amount of money they're spending sometimes on their what they just kind of look as their tax return. It's kind of, they look at it as just one big thing. They got a bookkeeper, they send away a bunch of paper to, they don't see it till the end of the year. They talk to their accountant 4 months after year end. They get a few reports that tells them how they did in the past year, which really doesn't tell them much about this year. And then they go home and they've spent a whole pile of money. And then when I start saying, like, man, you get the right cloud system put together, you get the right people helping you, they're going to save, sometimes it's amazing, the days of time in a month, and then having actually the proper documentation and the proper records and everything's connected together. So suddenly they're like, oh man, we're not losing these things. We're invoicing properly. We're invoicing faster. It helps their businesses from top to bottom. And then they have this forward look of where they're going. And man, sometimes it doesn't cost them much more than they were paying before, but the bookkeeper is actually pricing it based on the value and making significantly more. It's not hourly anymore. Now they're making a really good dollar. They're offering a ton of value. They're serving many more clients, and everybody is happy. And it's happening. Like, we have partners that are doing this. We have partners that are in exactly the situation. They're helping their clients. Their clients are happy. They're onboarding people onto Dry Run and onto their cloud like every single week. And they're building their business at the same time, and their clients are thrilled because they're getting this help that they need.
I think it's fabulous. It really is creating a huge opportunity. And there's a few things that we've talked about that I think are the opportunity. I mean, your solution is something that every listener needs to take a look at, and we'll have links, of course, in the show to do that. And we'll talk a little bit more about what the best route for them to take to learn more about Dry Run is at the end. But this whole conversation even just pointed out, like, when our listener, when you are in front of a client, is slowing it down just a little bit and asking a couple of questions that can start to show you where the pain is for a business owner. So for you, Blaine, if we were to go in a time machine back to just around the 2007 mark where you're having this problem, what would have been a question from a bookkeeper that would have highlighted the fact that you need to do some things or change some things in your business? When you were signing the lease on your sports car, I don't think that's the time, but maybe a little after that, perhaps. But and I am curious to see what kind of sports car it is, but that's another conversation. But what are some questions that your partners are asking their clients, their business owner clients, that open up these kinds of conversations?
Well, the most amazing thing, the thing that'll probably shock you the most is when I started Dry Run, I talked with business owners. I built it for business owners, and then found out later that it was such a great fit. And it just, no, we're approaching it the wrong way, because I didn't even realize that bookkeepers and accountants cared about this at all. Like, that's how far off I was. And I've realized now that businesses a lot of times think the same thing. They have no idea that a bookkeeper that is, especially kind of in the cloud and understanding all this and putting these systems together, can help them with this stuff. But they trust them. They trust their bookkeeper. They trust their accountant. They a lot of times the questions, like, first of all, it's just to sit down and saying, look, we're here to help you. The number one question that we always say is like, hey, have you approach it as, have you thought about this? Have you thought about, cash flow? What are some of the issues that you guys might be facing? Now, we've made some resources up for this, because having these conversations, like, man, I can have them in my sleeve because I spend every day on this stuff. But we know it can be difficult to start those conversations. So we have a few things. We have one as a cash flow scorecard. And this scorecard is just 10 questions on a scale, 10 questions on a scale that you can ask your customer. You can sit down with your client and kind of say, like, let's take a look at your business and look at your risk in your cash flow. And it's in the entrepreneur's terms and in the thoughts that, make sense to them. And it's a great talking point. We also have a document that, like I mentioned, kind of going from crisis into reducing the risk, and then into setting those goals, and then into growth mode. Those are the 4 areas that really need to be addressed. And of course, if you get out of the crisis mode, it's kind of those 3 areas you're just constantly dealing with. Another good way to open up conversations with your clients. And we've got actually 4 or 5 different resources now, depending on where the client's at, what sort of industry, where their needs are, that can help open up those conversations. But the biggest thing is not just to say, hey, how's your cash flow? Because I guarantee you, in an entrepreneur's mind, they're thinking, I got enough in the bank for Friday. They're not thinking back to 6 months ago. So, you really have to do more of a deep dive and start asking about, have you had shortfalls in the past? Do you get paid late a lot of times? Or if you're sending out invoices, that's probably the number one. Are you sending them out as soon as you can? What is delaying sending out those invoices? Are those invoices getting paid on time? Are you oftentimes, not paying your bills on time? You can, and bookkeepers, of course, have access to a lot of really useful information. They can start to see right in that, QuickBooks Online account, like, how many of these invoices are they using invoices? Are they getting paid late? They can start to look at some of that and do a little bit of a diagnosis themselves. But we find that there's particular industries are a good place to start, and ones that are project based, that have that highly variable income. They do send out invoices to get paid, and they're awaiting payments, usually big invoices. They're paying big bills for materials or suppliers or contractor costs. Those are the types of industries or manufacturers where they may have more of a steady stream of income, but boy, they have to have all that money up front to build their product. Identifying some of those key issues can really help you identify who those prospects are, who those best leads are that you should go talk with first. And really, like we kind of mentioned, I haven't even talked a little bit about Dry Run, just to give you a little idea. The reason we suggest to use Dry Run is going to save 80% of your time over using spreadsheets, and your customers are going to understand and love the forecast. They're going to be completely up to date, and it's a lot harder for them to break. They can't break an equation, that sort of thing. But most importantly, if you come to us and talk with us, we'd love to talk to you about Dry Run and kind of what we do. But we know first step is we want to talk with you about how you can talk with your clients. And we're happy to literally email these resources over to you guys and actually talk with you about how you can open up these conversations with your clients, because we know it's not necessarily always a comfortable thing or an easy thing to do. But your customers that are really challenged with cash flow, they're going to love you for it. They trust you. It's just how do you approach them? How do you open up the conversation? How do you focus in on those key issues that they face so that you can really intervene and help?
This, for me, hearing this, the way I see it as being like ground zero, huge opportunity is it's a great conversation starter. You're out networking, you're talking to somebody. It's like simple question. It's like, yeah, what's keeping you up at night? It's like, oh, this, that, and everything. It's like, you know what? We find that cash flow is one of the key things that many business owners are not paying enough attention to, can change the game of your business. I mean, that saying just that is interesting. Tell a story, whatever the case may be. Then a next step is simply let me come over and do a cash flow scorecard with you, and we'll show you how great that. So you're providing a tool. I see you as a great tool in the tool belt of our listener that they could use to actually start sales conversations with, but then actually deliver something that's not going to be difficult to deliver. You're saving a ton of time for the bookkeeper. You're saving a ton of time for the business owner and presenting it in a cloud-based tool that they can deliver greatness. And that's going to lead to great referrals, sustained business, all those good things. So we'll definitely have links to everything that you've said in the show already, Blaine. It sounds like a great product, and I really encourage every listener to go and take a look at this. I see this. I've been saying this for a long time, that this is a heavily underutilized opportunity in the space. It's that people need to know this. They might not know it. They know when they can't pay their staff. They get that. Maybe they don't know that means cash flow because, like you say, the cowboy entrepreneur. But businesses need to know and will sleep better. Your new tagline could literally be, we are a better alternative than sleeping pills. The better alternative to sleeping pills, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely it. They're and like you kind of outlined, lying awake at night isn't always I might run out of cash. Lying awake at night is, man, do I take the dive and hire these new people, buy the new piece of equipment, buy the new truck? It crosses a lot of areas. And sometimes when we talk with business, you say cash flow, and they may kind of like go, what do you mean? They're like, hey, do you get paid late a lot? Oh, yeah, I get paid late a lot. It's killing me. Well, that's cash flow, right? So Sometimes it's even just the terminology. But I think you hit the nail on the head, and we would love everyone to come and visit us and talk with us. Take a look at our site. We've got a chat bubble right on our site. You can sign up for a demo. We'd love to talk with you and just sort of walk you through and show you the types of resources we have and how we can help you talk with your clients all the way through to why, we really believe DryRun is the absolute best product for saving you time, but also for having your customer love what you're delivering to them.
It's beautiful. Such a great opportunity. I'm so glad I met you, Blaine, and looking forward to learning more about DryRun and how our listeners are using it. And I know it's not going to be the last time we have you on the show. This is very important to me because it helps small business, and anything that helps small business owners do better work, do a better job of what they're doing is a friend of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. So thank you for generously giving us your time, and I hope that our listeners will come and learn how they can utilize your services.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Beautiful. That wraps another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.